I'm back.
Marvelous, buddy. Okay, in that case, shall we kick off?
Yes,
Welcome everyone to Hersley Hangout. Today with Andy Thry, Program Director for API, IoT, Connected Cloud. Andy, how are you? You okay, buddy? How's Boston?
I'm doing great, thank you. And how was Hershey?
it's it's a bit grey, to be honest.
Mm.
So,
Comparatively, we are a little bit warmer here in Boston today.
yeah, you got the best of it, I think.
Oh yeah.
So, Andy, now I understand that you've written a fantastic piece of work bringing your ideas to life in the digital economy. Andy, could you give us a quick couple of minutes just to give us a quick overview of what that piece is all about?
Absolutely. So I was having a couple of conversations with our folks. We did a webcast recently with our WebSphere CTO, as you know. That's available in our API management podcast section. We have a YouTube page that we have it listed, all our podcasts listed there, and we listed there. And a couple of conversations that came in there in which we discussed about some of these ideas that lead to my writing of that article that I posted, which you read, and then we started talking, and we are like, okay, we need to maybe take it to the deeper level and discuss with your audience. Hence, we are here.
Awesome. Fantastic, buddy. Awesome. So, Tony, from reading through it, could you briefly tell us why bringing ideas to life in the digital economy is different to, say, normal IT execution?
Right. So, as I discussed in my article, what happens is when you have an idea in the digital economy, the old days when we in the normal IT infrastructure, when we want to bring your innovations to life, the way you do it is a little bit different. You build everything from end to end. You install things on your IT infrastructure. You try to make every piece of the component work. And I remember the days that we used to go for do the POCs. I remember we sit around for days for the admins and security architects to security admins to come and open up the ports and firewalls and give access rights and install software. Probably about a week or 10 days will be gone by the time when you set up the actual systems that you're going to build your innovation on. Unfortunately, that doesn't exactly work for the digital economy. A few reasons. One, it's moving much faster, but more importantly, there are startups out there that are doing innovation way faster than you can. If you sit around for 2, maybe 3 weeks to innovate yourself, you're already behind the curve. To begin with, you're already behind the curve that you need to be innovating faster. And then the startups can push the envelope a little bit faster. So you need to move quicker and faster. So what that means is you need to start using, as Jerry Como discussed in that particular podcast that he and I talked about. You need to bring your great ideas, combine them with the world's great ideas to make something magical happen. Right? That's the gist of it. So essentially, APIs or microservices allow you to build that concept. So you have your digital idea, you bring that to fruition. When you do that, I don't have to build the entire thing about that by myself. I'll pick up a few other APIs or microservices that already exist, proven and scalable and working and giving the functions I need. Pick up pieces of that from what I want and then combine them into my idea and then bring it out to the market. In that sense, I can do innovation much quicker. For example, I bring out an idea and then after bringing it to the market, I realize, you know what, there are a couple of pieces in here that I don't like. So you don't have to go back and build the whole thing for another 6 months. Instead, you could say, you know what, remove that component, maybe add additional component. For example, I want to have an ATM locator in my app. All you got to do is get that API, add it in there, maybe in about a day or half a day, I can have it up and running. And that's the major difference when you bring your ideas to um, life in digital economy. You need to move at the pace of business or at the pace of digital innovation, and that's where we can help.
I understand. So, you mentioned speed a couple of times there. So, what is this emphasis on speed, and how does it relate to innovation?
Right. So if you have seen any of those Fast and Furious movies, there's always a need for speed, right? It looks like that's kind of catching up in the digital world as well, especially the younger, the new modern digital developers who are. There is this term, I believe, that originally came from Gartner. I could be completely wrong. There is a differentiation between what we call it as a digital native and digital immigrant, right, or migrant.
Yeah.
So the problem is the digital native folks, they were born and almost like a silver spoon. They were born to accustomed to the iPhones and the Droids and the latest apps and things like that. So building one app in one way and tell them this is how you have to use it is not going to not only make them happy, but it's not going to provide them what they're looking for, the next edge of a newer app and or function. So which means you got to build things in a what we call it as a trial and error method to an extent, right? I mean, you have an idea, the idea itself is great, but the execution of that idea, how are you going to bring that out to the market? It's not like, one answer to that. You build something and then try it out, saying that if that particular one gains traction with my user base, if it doesn't, then I change a few more things, and then with a smaller iteration I go back to the market, right? I mean, it's the same as what we used to do in the olden days, but the problem is in the olden days that iteration used to take months, right? You remember that. We'll build an app. Okay, the version 1 doesn't work. Remember, there's even a saying with enterprises: never ever buy a product which is version 0, version 0, right? wait for a .1 or version 1 or whatever before you could engage. That's pretty much same thing with the digital economy as well. But the difference between the version 0 and version 1 is a lot quicker, because if you take days or weeks to build that, someone else, because there's nothing copyrighted about this, someone else will put a same concept out in the market that could beat you to the punch, right?
Okay, so we've given a great overview now of bringing your ideas to life in the digital economy. So I'm going to open it up for questions from our live viewers. If you want to ask questions on Twitter, the hashtag is IBM integration. So please do feel free to pose any questions. All right. In the meantime, Andy, can you tell us, how does API help with this?
Right. So I mentioned some of that already. So what companies are doing now is, this is an analogy I give my customers. They love it. When you go to buy pants, you call them slacks out there in Europe, dress pants or dress slacks. You buy a fully finished one, you pay a certain amount of dollars. But then if you go to the high-end stores, they won't finish the whole thing. They will finish it probably 80%, so you can adjust the bottom of it the way you want it.
Right.
Yet you have to land up paying more because of the flexibility that gives you, right?
Yep.
It's a pretty much the same concept when it comes down to APIs. I don't finish all the way from my backend to my middleware to my processes to the front end UI, which is what the companies used to do 10, 20 years ago. The problem is I'm not an expert in all of those elements. I may be good at my processy area. My data is very good. That's what I'm known for. But then building the UI, I may not be able to build the UX in itself is a pretty big science now, right? The UX science concept. I may not be able to build what I call as an engaging app. That's why, in IBM, that we have this concept of system of record, and then there's system of engagement. The system of engagement need to be an engaging experience, not just, it's there not just because you need to build it, but got to be engaging. So rather than me going and building everything. We, companies have come up with a great concept. They said, you know what, instead of building this and then the system of interaction and then all the way to the system of engagement, what I will do is that I will probably build it up here to the system of interaction level. I call that as API. And you, whoever that you is, if you're a developer, third party developer, my own developer, a partner, you come in and you come in and you connect with my system of interaction, and then you could build whatever you want from that piece onwards. So that's why APIs have become quite popular, because it's an interface to your backend data. It's an integration possibility to partners. It's also a method for other developers to come and build cool applications, right? So there are many possibilities out here, but at the end of the day, APIs are well-defined interfaces into my backend systems, into my processes, into my data. And I stop at a certain point where I have a complete control over that, 100% control, that I can govern really well. I can secure my backend data really well, and then I'll give it to you, and then you decide what you want to do with that.
Awesome. So,
Hey, John,
yeah.
my video here seemed to be frozen. Can you see me okay?
At the moment, Andy, no, I can't. You seem to be shrouded in darkness for the time being.
Okay, let me see what is going on here.
But I can hear you just fine if we want to continue just to have a
Okay.
chat. That's absolutely fine. Yeah. So, okay. So, how do you go about choosing the right digital platform for this, Andy?
So that's another thing that a lot of people make a mistake when they are choosing a platform, right? They know that the APIs are great concepts. They know that they need to build something, but the problem is, instead of picking a flexible enough platform that will not only give them options to just use the existing set of APIs, but it's not just about APIs. When you're building a digital innovation, you need to have security, you need to have a mobile enablement, you need to have IoT, you need to have the flexibility of, it's not just about having API. API is a great way to expose your existing data or enterprise services, but just that itself is not an answer. You need other, as I say to my customers, in in an orchestra, you can have a conductor. He is the major main piece, but he is just not the answer. If you just put him in there with nobody else there, he will just be waving his wand and nothing will happen. So you need to have this accompanying smaller pieces, however small that may be. All of those elements need to come into place. So your digital platform is almost like an orchestra with all of those components and elements in place, and will allow you in a flexible manner to bring your ideas by combining or stringing them together the way you want. You could do things like, okay, you know what, I want to bring out this application. Actually, if you go back to my article that I wrote about bringing digital ideas to life, I do showcase one particular company, the powerboard, silver board powerboard company, speedboard company, and how they used our platform, digital platform, IBM digital platform, to bring this to fruition, right? Essentially, what they're doing is that, okay, I need to build an analytics piece. I need to build mobile enablement. I need to build IoT to read all these components, the components from a speedboard that are giving information in. So I choose the elements that I need, combine them together to create an app. And not only that, it gives me a flexibility to choose what I want when I want. But if I find that some of them is working, but some of them are not, then I want to change them quickly enough to change my business model, to change my monetization model, to change my governance, to change my security, to give what my customers are looking for. Because if 60% of my customers are saying, you know what, I don't need that analytics, I need a different set of data, you shouldn't go back and do a big research. It should be in a way that, okay, I compose my application. So I'll add two of this, two of that, and about 90% of them already proven and mature. It's already on my platform, and combine them all of that from my platform, and then I add one or two of the magic ingredient, right? The magic potion, and then I bring it out. And if that potion didn't work, then go back and add a little more, whatever that may be, right? Salt, pepper, and one more application throw in there. Boom, you're out.
Awesome. So, Andy, when you mentioned, you gave the analogy of the orchestra with different pieces coming in and coming out, it put me in mind of microservices. And could you give a quick example of what microservices actually are, and are they related to this innovation process? Do they matter?
Right. So the microservices is actually an architecture pattern that has gained traction off late, right? If you look at it, the concept itself is not that radically new or earth-shattering. In the old days, we used to have the enterprise complex apps that we used to have, right? And we find it a little bit difficult to build, going back to my old analogy of having an API that finish your services, most of it, and expose that to the customer so they can finish the way they want. We exposed what we call it as services. So basically, we took a complex application and composed them using services. The problem with services was, even though it was composed into a multi-service to build an app, it was not small enough to give us the flexibility. So the service-oriented architecture gave us the great starting point on proving that apps can be composed of something. But while the concept was good, the answer was not there simply because the services were still too thick. And also we made it a little bit too rigid and made it too strict for people to use by governing it too much, by putting it in a registry and repository, which is too difficult for people to find out. So then came this microservice concept, which we took that and then take it to the next level by saying, you know what, I'll make it even smaller in more manageable chunks, right? And that's how the microservice was born. And of course, they are all exposed using the APIs. That's why APIs become quite popular. So essentially, it's an architectural pattern, which is in small chunks, manageable chunks, and it's sort of easy to change and version as and when you need it. And you could compose with other services to build an answer the way you want. So that's why it's quite popular.
Okay, all right. So, Andy, I think what we'll do right now is, if it's okay with you, I'm going to throw it out to see if we've got any questions from Twitter on the hashtag integration. And I'm looking over it now. We've got a question which comes from Nader and says, you mentioned composable IT. What exactly do you mean by composable IT?
Right. So in the 80s and 90s, when things were happening in IT, it was happening one at a time, right? Services was a huge concept, service-oriented architecture, and putting the ESBs in place and decoupling the back end from the front end was a huge idea. But that was one idea or technology or a pattern or an architectural change that we needed to make. And same thing with when CRM came to market, that was a great idea, but then we were doing it almost like one at a time. But now, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Every single week or month that I talk to customers, they need to engage in 4 or 5 different projects, which are all equally important. To give you an idea, mobility is pretty big. Cloud enablement is pretty big. Having a SaaS version of your application is pretty big. IoT enabling your applications pretty big. Adding gadgets to your application to collect data and or find data in usable way. That's pretty big. Insights, finding insights into your data. You can collect all the data, but if you don't gather intelligence or insights from the data, it becomes dumb data. It's not smart data anymore, right? So business insights into the collected data, or data insights, which another article that I wrote, you and I talked about, that's pretty big. So at any given day, ITs are under pressure now to build all of the above. I mean, I'm even forgetting to mention things like the socialness. How do you associate your enterprise with the social? Social is not just about tweeting things out or posting things on LinkedIn. By doing a sentiment analysis of what's trending in Twitter or what's trending in LinkedIn or what others are saying about me, based on that, I should change of my business process and what I'm doing. If you don't do it, you'll be history. You're not going to survive. If I'm offering a stock trading advice, I should look at that to offer that based on something, or I should follow somebody's to profile to change what I recommend to them. Those kind of things. So everything needs to change and correlate with other things. So that brings back to my original point that you can build one or two at a time, but you should be open and ready to adapt to all these changes, which means you need to compose your IT as and when needed. So when you're building my new app or building new channel, enabling new partner, the requirement for each of them would be different. I can guarantee it will be different for each of them. And the customers, the users, the partners have all become, how should I put this, demanding more than ever. So having said that, in order for you to cater to their needs, your IT should be in a situation that I can compose these elements, the cloud, the social, as we call it at IBM, the SOMA Cloud, right? Social, mobile, cloud, and plus IoT, all of the above, and analytics, and combine them all together. Not all of them might need all of the answers. So your answer is not, okay, I got all of this above. I got 20 components. Everyone who needs, I'll add them all together, throw it at you. That's not the right answer, right? This particular user or consumer might require only 4 of the 20. And the next one might require 19 of the 20 or 20 of the 20. Understanding your customer, compose your I don't want to use the word service because it has a bad connotation to it, but compose your delivery and compose your IT to deliver what the customer wants on demand, when they want it, as they want it. That's where the IT is moving to. Hence, I use the term, and IBM uses that. It's a borrowed term from IBM, of course. We call that as composable IT,
Right.
for the composable economy, of course, right?
Sure. Yeah. Andy, that's been absolutely fantastic and a real joy to talk to you. I happen to find your article on LinkedIn. Where do you recommend people go to read it?
Yeah, so if you follow me on LinkedIn, I post all of my articles on LinkedIn because it's easier for people to come to read there as opposed to necessarily coming to our website. We also have a blog site for IBM API management. The links are provided on this link you sent out. Or you could also follow our Twitter handles. Mine is Andy Thry at Andy Thry, and our IBM API management is at IBM API MGT. Or just Google our names, IBM API Management or Andy Thry or any of the combination thereof. I'm sure you'll find most of this.
Fantastic. I'll make sure that these are associated with the video as well and it goes up to YouTube. Andy, it's been an absolute joy. Thank you so very much, buddy. Been great to talk to you again.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Love to continue talking with you more and looking forward to do more of this on various topics. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye now.
All right. You too. Take care.